What is going on, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly Amazon Q&A show, where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, we are here to answer your guys' questions about selling on Amazon. And heck, if you just want some general life advice, let us know. We'll dole that out freely as well. It'll be bad, but it'll be advice. So if you got a question about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, or perhaps you've just got a curious Keepa chart, well, drop it in the chat and we'll be happy to help you any way we can. For those of you who may be new here, my name is Chris Grant, and to my right is my alacritous co-host, Chris Rasick. Chris, what's going on, man? Happy Wednesday. Happy new time slot.
Yeah, happy almost prime time, right?
Right.
This is I mean, a knee-jerk reaction. There's clearly not enough information to make an informed decision, but I kind of like this slot.
Going up against some heavy hitters, with the whatever cable news network is your flavor of choice, But I'd like to think that we can pull some numbers in the 25 to 45 demo.
Yeah, you know what? Dinner's over. Commute is likely done for most people except the West Coast. The people that are plopped on the couch watching the news or Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy or whatever happens to be on, it's probably not a same wavelength that we're on anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, so no, go ahead if you.
I was going to say this is day number 2 in a row of the adjective rather than me coming from research, coming from just serendipity from reading. So Sundays actually came from a Stephen King novel. This one today came from Deep Work, which is what we're reading in the book club for OAC Plus. I have noticed that my rate of reading, my speed of reading has slowed down with this nonfiction book. I'm only 20% of the way through, like 3 days in, but I am glad to get a little nonfiction back in.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I usually run through a couple nonfictions in a row, and then I'm like, I need something a little bit faster. So that's one of the positives that fiction does. Yeah, nonfiction goes much slower. Chris, you'll appreciate this. I got to James Clear my 7-year-old today.
Ooh, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. She got this. She got these building things. They're magnetic, right? So they just kind of, the edges kind of just clip together.
Magnetiles.
Yeah, exactly. So not quite as secure as Lego, right? So she built this big thing, and so she was real proud of it. So we made a fuss over it last night, and so she got home from school, and I kind of heard her in there clicking and clacking those things again, and it was starting to get dark. So I was like, all right, turn some lights on and stuff. So I walked in there, and she's in the dark in the dining room. And she's on the floor and she's huddled over her magnetiles. So I was I was like, what are you doing sitting in the dark? Kind of kicked her in the butt a couple times, and she didn't really respond. And then she's like, my thing fell. And I realized she's crying, and she's like, oh, she broke this big house that she had built last night as she tried to transfer it from the table back down to the floor. So we got to talk about how it's the process of building it. You learn to enjoy that part. And, if you can learn to enjoy that part, that's what makes the fun happen over and over again. It's the fact that you can tear it down and you can build the exact same thing that you were proud of before. I said, or you can tear it down, you can build something completely new. You have the freedom to keep doing that over and over again. You need to realize that the fun part is in the actual process, in the building process. And I was like, I kind of walked away. I was like, that's some James Clear shit right there.
Right.
So, But yeah, and she stopped crying. It actually kind of worked. So, um, and I can't help but think about, um, we were it's a brand new Q1, right? We have the Q1 leads group going, and people take some time to get settled in, and I know it's frustrating when you're gated in stuff, and it happens no matter whether you're running a Q1 group or you're running OAC plus. Every new seller is concerned about gating. And we were talking to one of the members, and he actually had a pretty cool idea that I thought was very smart. I don't Results are to be determined, but he was trying to isolate newer sellers, thinking that the stuff they're selling is probably a little bit more wide open, and in theory has a lot of merit, I think.
Mhm.
But it just comes down to, there really is no shortcut. You could speed it up a little bit, maybe. You can try to isolate. There might be some ways to find a collection of brands that might have a little less restriction, but ultimately, when it boils down to it, it's a long process, and we have to just pay our time tuition, and our process. But that's the process. The thing that new sellers, I wish that I could get them to understand, is it's frustrating because you're going to have to do so many reps to get through it. But once you get through it, you've stretched out, you've built so much endurance from a sourcing perspective, that once you're out of the sandbox, once the gates open for you in large part as an experienced seller, once Amazon says, okay, you can have a driver's license instead of just your temps, you're going to be in such a great position because you've stretched that muscle out and you've built up so much endurance. So it's a tough lesson. It's tough advice to hear, especially in the midst of your frustration. But yeah, it's I hope that at some point in time is a little bit of consolation.
Yeah. It's Chris and I did not rehearse this, okay? But you James cleared your daughter, and that rolls into a nice lesson for Amazon sellers. This morning, I threw a little Marcus Aurelius at my own son. For some strange reason, they decided Florida schools decided to go back to school after Christmas break on a Tuesday. So today was his second day back to school. And just the kid's just in a mood. He already is not a big fan of school. Like, he's already got his life figured out. He's either he's going to be in the NBA, or the backup plan is that I'm going to help him figure out a business to start, and then I'm going to help him run that business. Um, okay. And he's going to get rich off of that. And I'm like, all right. So this morning, he's in a funk, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, pain is inevitable. I'm like, but suffering is optional. I'm like, you can choose to not allow this to bother you and focus on the things that you do enjoy. Like, his first class of the day is a broadcasting class to learn how to broadcast.
Ooh,
And I was like, dude, I would love that. And
yeah,
he's like, well, I don't want to do the news. And I'm like, I highly doubt it's like that. I'm like, it's 2026. I bet you they're going to teach you like YouTube stuff. Yeah, and I know that the school has a YouTube studio set up. And I'm like, so why don't you focus on the things that are cool? That you get to go see your buddies again. You get to hang out with them. And I'm like, just the suffering is optional. And I think that goes along very nicely with what you were saying, like, especially for newer sellers. There is going to be that pain. You got to put in the reps, you've got to grow, you got to build those muscles, you got to prove to Amazon that, you're not somebody who's going to take a 6-pack of Nike socks and break them down into 3-packs and then sell them. And that's the pain. But all of the complaining about ungating and this and that, like, the suffering is optional. you realize that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's fairly proven. It's, get to 20, 25, $30,000 in sales, things start to ease up a little bit. And you can choose not to suffer, and learn a heck of a lot in the process.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. There's an important set of mistakes that you're either going to make or learn to completely avoid. While you're putting that enduring that pain. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Also,
it's almost a disservice if you did find a way to shortcut
yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure my son hates the ride to school every morning. Uh,
it.
like, why does my dad just pull out dead philosophers like twice a week and talk to me about it? Yeah, he'll appreciate it in time, perhaps.
Right.
So, all right, let's answer some questions, and then we've got a couple of pieces of news. We actually didn't get to any news this past Sunday. It was all questions, which is just fine. But we do have a little bit of news, at least one piece I want to get to. But let's chat here. So, Jerry, what is going on, sir? I was taking a look at last month FBA seller fees, and I have a compensated clawback fee of 156.89. Any idea what that is for? By the way, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. I'm not 100% sure what a compensated clawback fee is, but here's my guess. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper into this. But what we've been noticing a lot is reimbursements that Amazon has given for things like lost inventory and stuff like that is now getting clawed back. And you're noticing that maybe there's a little bit of inventory given back to you instead. So Amazon's trying to balance the books, and it seems to be balanced in their favor quite often. Imagine that. Uh, my grandfather used to tell this story about his dad, and his dad was a butcher, and he would actually get into physical fights with butchers that would put their thumb on the scale, because it was repugnant to him to charge people more. Um, but also he would get mad at adults who bought hot dogs for their kids when they were buying steaks for themselves. Eh, I wish I could have met him. He seems like he was a man of many paradoxes.
Yeah, it's a certain code of honor. That's good for him.
All right, potato. Yep, we're gonna try the 7 o'clock time slot for a while. And Chris said, "Hey, it's after dinner, stuff like that." It's exactly the reason. We were doing this at 5:30. My wife likes to have dinner. 5:30, 6 o'clock. We really like to eat together as a family, and I just mentioned to her, I'm like, "Hey, do you want me to move these to 7? And then I can, I don't miss Sunday and Wednesday family dinner." And she was like, "Yeah, that would actually be really helpful." And so that's what we did. That way I can hang out with the kids for a little bit. Let's see here. All right, Dave, I got a restricted policy violation for a chocolate I haven't sold in a while. Do I do nothing, or do I check the box to acknowledge the violation? There's no effect on account health. I really try not to acknowledge violations. And, according to like Joy from Seller Basics and things like that, they say you really should try not to acknowledge it. In this particular case, my guess is you probably have this item still listed in your inventory, even though there's no stock available. I would try to close and delete that listing and wait 48 hours to see if that violation just falls off your account. Oh, sorry, guys. Come on, cat. Come on. Let's see here. Jerry asked in the Q1 group, is there a starting point or a calendar of events? Missed your live on it. I was driving back to Seattle from Utah. Yeah. So there is an events section at the very top of Discord. If you're on mobile, you swipe over to where all of the channels are, and the event section is at the top. And same when you're on the computer, it's just above the welcome section. Oh, Monica. I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking to Chris. If you're talking to me about weight, I don't mind talking about it. I used to, but I don't anymore. But it was just egg whites, cruciferous vegetables, a lot of chicken tenderloins, a pretty low calorie, high protein diet. Yeah, I was really trying to stay under 1,600 calories a day. And then it was a whole lot of walking from March until about Thanksgiving. I have been off the bandwagon for a little bit, but I'm getting back on the bandwagon here. But yeah, thank you.
Just make sure you don't run into those honey roasted M&Ms because they will.
I've not even tried those yet.
Man.
Let's see here. Why should you not acknowledge the violation? So, it doesn't really. So you got to remember, violations stay on your account forever. Doesn't matter if you beat it. Doesn't matter if you acknowledge it. Whatever it is. So if you just acknowledge the violation, at least what my thought process is based on talking to Joy and things like that, is if you acknowledge the violation, you've just said, "Yeah, I made a mistake. Sorry about that." And that's it. Okay. And so down the road, if it happens again, Amazon looks back and they're like, oh, well, they've had two of these and they've just acknowledged them and moved on. They've not tried to fix this in any way. So, you know what? This third time around, let's give them a little suspension and let them know that, we mean business. Whereas if you do try to fight back on them or, you get them taken off, they're like, oh, well, they saw there was an issue. They fixed the issue. Great. Let's keep this train rolling. That's kind of my thought process on the whole thing. Is Boxum's shipping fee accounted for in Seller Amp? So, one, Boxum doesn't charge you a shipping fee. The shipping fee is charged by Amazon. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, kind of where these things come from. So Freddie, I'm guessing you may be a little bit newer. I think I've seen you here before, but those shipping fees are paid to Amazon. Boxum just lets you know, hey, this is what your shipping fee is. Now, is it accounted for in Seller Amp automatically? No. You need to input what your average inbound shipping fee per pound is. I typically use $1. It's kind of less than that, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. So I use $1 per pound for inbound shipping. And then since my prep center does minimal shipment splits, I also make sure that the minimal shipment splits is chosen inside of Seller Amp as well to make sure that's accounted for. What you might also notice right now is in Seller Amp, the Q4 storage fees are still turned on. I went in and manually turned mine off because there's no way I'm getting any inventory into Amazon before January 15th. So I'm not going to have to pay any. So I've started sourcing without increased storage fees for Q4. What date does that Q4 holiday fee drop off? On the 15th. 15th. Have either of you guys tried to teach your kids any reselling? I might have found it interesting as a kid to have my own little store or something. Yes. As of yet, not with much success, but I am working on that more and more, especially with my older son. Matter of fact, he's probably going to do some retail arbitrage here very soon. My younger son, I've tried to explain things and he's all about like, can I just get a taste without doing any of the work? That's the one thing I have not passed on my work ethic quite yet, but really, really trying hard there. But like, if I could, I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is I don't have something to sell that he's interested in. If I could go out and buy a bunch of cologne that he could look at and hold, he might then be interested in it. And he's been sending me links from these YouTube shorts that he watches about like where to get cheap cologne to be able to resell. And then I've got to explain to him, I'm like, you see, this guy's talking about mixing in some real ones with some dupes. I'm like, this guy's literally telling people to break the law and sell counterfeit product. And he's like, well, who's it going to harm? And then we got to go into an whole ethics discussion. And then I forget the reselling aspect that I'm trying to teach.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like it definitely depends. It seems like my oldest, he needs to be interested in the product.
Yeah.
We started some conversations. I bought a pair of Jordan golf shoes. They did, I think it was like the third iteration of the Air Jordan. And they just swapped it out and put some soft spikes on it and sold it as a golf shoe.
I'd rock those.
Yeah. There's some of the stuff they're doing with golf shoes is pretty cool. Like they have Adidas just has like golf Sambas, where it's literally just a Samba classic, and they just put soft spikes on them. But yeah, so I was flipping some of those just on eBay. Signed up for, like it was a limited release or something, so I got in line and purchased what I could. So that kind of interested him, and he carried that. I think he ended up flipping some shoes, and I think he was even like trading with some of his friends from school and trying to flip it. And then sports cards got real popular around COVID. So I was getting some of those through online auctions. And that kind of interested him a little bit, but it definitely, his interest is tied to his own interest in the product that he's actually selling. Like he hasn't quite detached and fall in love with the profit margins, regardless of product, which is understandable.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let's see here. Sarah, by try not to acknowledge violations, would you include the inaccurate box quantity, weight, and shipment issues? I usually fight the box size ones because I have evidence, but I don't have it with a prep center. I don't usually, I haven't had that problem with my current prep center once. So those ones, if I can't fight it with evidence, I will accept those. And I realize that that's probably not going to get me suspended. I could get my inbound shipping privileges suspended, and I could come to them with a plan and stuff like that and get that fixed. But those ones I will acknowledge and pay the fee and deal with it. That is one place I'm okay with it.
Yeah, stakes certainly seem lower with those violations.
Yeah. Jerry, TikTok shop. Are you thinking of attempting it once the US controls 80% of it this month? Probably not. Like, would I like to do the Amazon influencer program and TikTok shop and creator connections? Yeah. I've even stopped in the Macy's store and tried on the Meta Wayfarers with transition lenses, like probably every time I've taken my kids to the mall. Because I don't go to the mall on my own ever. That's gross. But I will take my kids and I'll stop in there, I'll try them on, and I think about it, and I'm like, my wife keeps telling me to pull the trigger. But time is an issue. If I had more time, I would absolutely do it. But I'm spread a little thin, which is good. All right.
Yeah. Even just put a cap on that. It's also worth repeating again. I mean, we're bullish on the people who hunker down and stick with Amazon. It's like there's obviously the question of bandwidth. And even if you weren't spread thin, I'd worry that I wouldn't notice, the tipping point of when I do start to be spread a little too thin, and it, to be honest, I could I could be doing more. I could still become more efficient with the Amazon thing. Um, I'm not in search of anything new. I know there are people making a lot of money, and there's people are singing the praises. Um, but I do think the opportunity is still here, for the people that are serious about it. We've multiple times we talked about sellers moving away from the platform. We've talked about the influx of new sellers slowing down, from its peak, a couple of years ago. So that's kind of like the Warren Buffett. Um, you know, what what is the actual quote? I know I butchered it last Sunday. It's be,
Um,
be
about
fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. Right? Those are the
yeah, yeah,
yeah
that's it. Sorry, I was thinking about buy when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own. I like that one too.
yeah. So this feels like um, a smart contrarian strategy to buckle down on Amazon, in my opinion.
Yeah. Uh, TikTok Shop, Amazon influencer program, that is where everyone is headed because it's literally just time, it's easy. Thing that people don't realize, at least in my opinion, is that eventually they won't need us anymore. Once there is enough content. And you'd say, oh, well, there's always new products and stuff like that. And yeah, there is. I would imagine it's got a ways to go. But like Amazon did the same thing with their affiliate program. Their affiliate program used to pay like 15%, and now it's like 4 on some of the big categories. And it's because they had enough, they got enough traffic, and then they cut commissions.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's actually I thought it was a joke, but they made it an official dictionary entry for the term and shitification. Um,
Hmm.
and it sounds like it's tongue in cheek, but there's actually a detailed like 3 steps that you go through, and you could talk about it with the Amazon affiliate program. You can talk about it with Facebook and a lot of other social media accounts. But basically the 3 steps. The first step is they make it free for all the users, right? They give you everything you want. Everything's free. They open it wide up. It's this great place to be. And then 2, it becomes now I'm gonna mess it up. Another step is they fill it with ads, right? So then they become welcoming to businesses, right? And businesses get all this exposure to all these now users because it was free, so they brought all these people, all these eyeballs on there. And then they open it up to businesses, and you can run ads, and you get all this exposure and all this engagement and whatnot. And then the third step is they then they start looking to make money, right? And it's for the shareholders, and they open up the profits to the shareholders. They make it pay to play for all those businesses that they attracted when it was wide open for them, and they actually start squeezing and dictating what the content is that the users see after they brought all those users on. So it's actually a 3-step process, which unfortunately makes it worse and worse for users and businesses that have been tempted to jump on and advertise as well.
Hmm. And Jerry, I see your follow-up question there. Really mean it for selling like um, your dead pile along with eBay. So here's my opinion. My opinion is that TikTok Shop is kind of mostly that spur of the moment type purchase. You're scrolling through, and you know what? I don't go on TikTok often, but when I do, I'm always getting ads for these knives, little switchblades, not quite switchblades, but super assisted opening knives. And they're cool. I've almost pulled the trigger on one, but I know that they're not real. I know that they're saying that they're one brand and they're actually another brand. But I think it's that kind of stuff that would probably do well. If you wanted to have another platform besides eBay, I would probably go with like Poshmark, Mercari, Facebook Marketplace first because you can just push that stuff out there. But if you wanted like another platform where you could probably make some good sales, I think Whatnot would be a good place for returns. People are looking for deals over there. They like the live shopping for some reason. I don't know. It's not for me. I'm not a fan of of having 900 HSN channels to look at, but people seem to really like it. They would probably buy some stuff just because you're selling it cheap. Ryan, do you have any SOPs for keeping track of leakage, like lost units, damaged inventory, returns, etc.? Um, uh, I don't have anything written out at the moment, but it is something on my list of things to do. So we will be getting around to that. All right. Let's talk a little news. Of course, if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be happy to talk about them. Chris, I noticed that finally some holiday e-commerce numbers came out. And, I remember we talked about these before and during the holidays. They're like, oh, we're going to see maybe 4% growth. And both of us were kind of like, that seems a little low. And sure enough, spot on. Data from Adobe Analytics indicates that during the period covering November 1st to December 31st of 2025, so not even all of Q4, they're leaving out all of Halloween here, and they're not adding in Q5 either because we haven't gotten through it yet. But the 2 months, November 1st to December 31st, consumers spent 257.8 billion. That is online sales at US retail sites. Right? So almost 258 billion in the US online. This represented a 6.8% jump from 241.4 billion spent online at US retail sites during the same period of 2024. So almost 7% growth. Now, there were 25 days that saw $4 billion or more in spend in the 2025 holiday season. So almost a full month of $4 billion days. That is up from 18 days in 2024. Big jump, in my opinion, going from about half a month to almost a month. Mobile shopping, of course, hit a new milestone like it does every year, with 56.4% of transactions taking place through a smartphone, up from 54.5% in 2024. Mobile shopping was highest on Christmas Day. I'm done opening my presents. I got gift cards. Now I have to listen to Grandpa Fred snore in the living room. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hop on Amazon and see what I can spend these gift cards on. It drove 66.5% of online sales on Christmas Day, compared to 65% in 2024. Thanksgiving Day was the second second highest. It was 61.6% of mobile share. Online spending this season was bolstered by a strong Cyber Week. That is the 5 days from Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday, which brought in 44.2 billion online overall. That's up 7.7% year over year. Cyber Monday remained the biggest e-commerce day of the season and the year, driving $14.25 billion in online spend, up 7% year over year. Cyber Monday growth outpaced Black Friday growth. Cyber Monday growth was outpaced by Black Friday growth. Black Friday did 11.8 billion, up 9.1% over the year. And then, of course, Thanksgiving Day, consumers spent 6.4 billion online. In some other good news for online retailers, returns were down 1.2% year over year during the holiday season. However, in the days following Christmas, from December 26th, our friends up north call that Boxing Day, to December 31st, returns were up 4.7% from the same time period in the prior year. One out of every 7 returns during the season happened during this 6-day time frame. That's a crazy stat. Now, a couple other things. Usage of buy now, pay later flexible payment hit an all-time high, of course, contributing $20 billion in online spend, up 9.8% year over year, and represented a $2.8 billion more than 2024. Traffic to retail sites from generative AI tools, think ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Grok, increased by 693% year over year. On Cyber Monday, AI traffic to U.S. retail sites increased by 670%. Social media's share of online holiday revenue came in at 4.6%, up a significant 40% year over year. 2024 had a 3.3% share, up 5.4% year over year. And then curbside pickup, BOPIS, or buy online pickup in store, fell year over year to 17.1% of all online orders. Last year it was 17.5%. It was not a huge drop, but a drop nonetheless, which actually that kind of surprised me. I figured that would have been higher.
Yeah, that's so all right. So overall, I mean, these are pretty big crooked numbers in growth across the board, especially when you're talking about growth, right?
Yeah.
So the people that are sitting there, like, this is the one thing that I would take from it, just up 6, up 7, up 9, like, it's the spreading of how easily we can shop. Like, your numbers were, what was it, 56% was through a smartphone at one point, you said, which it just shows that, think of all the people that are now converting over to not only online shopping but mobile shopping. This isn't just Q4. Like, this, I started thinking about this in terms of the entire calendar year. Like, this is going to translate to multiple holidays, is going to translate to multiple quarters. This is an overarching trend, especially when you see the numbers up nearly across the board. The one thing I am curious about, I'll be real interested to see how AI settles in. Now it's going to grow for sure, but and maybe this is, I don't know if this is a common perception, but there were a whole lot of people started making their own models, right? And they tried to sell, like, hey, get access to Claude, ChatGPT, and Perplexity all in this one thing that I built, for just one price, and they tried to pitch it like, get rid of all the rest, which you can see the attraction to a consumer, especially somebody who's struggling to, try to keep up with all the news that comes just nonstop in as far as AI advancement. So I'm wondering if the same thing will take place, because right now everybody's trying to create their own AI. It's Amazon has Rufus, which I find very helpful, especially when I need clarification on a listing, as far as quantity or size or whatnot. It's much easier to ask Rufus than it is to scour the product detail page. I can move a lot faster using that. Is there going to be a market for an aggregator? Because you have Comet, Perplexity's AI browser. It plays nice with all the Chrome extensions, and we're trying to move towards, what do they call that? Agentic AI, right? Where it's just
AI?
kind of, Yeah. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of consolidation, and I wonder if there's uh, kind of like a pecking order that emerges as far as somebody who tries to make it a little bit more user friendly instead of, if they see it all fragmented with all the different AIs, if somebody tries to come in and make a one-stop shop for AI assisted shopping.
That's a good question. I would imagine someone should do it because if you can use affiliate links and actually get people to come in, you could make a significant amount of money.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, it would be interesting. Oh, Luke hates AI. It's always lying and hallucinating.
Yeah. I
Um,
imagine there were daddy's words spoken through the daughter.
um, I'll say, Luke, you go talk to some more people, and you'll realize that AI probably doesn't hallucinate any more than uh, the average person. Um, but let's see here. Deal Hunter, just to fire up the audience. Sorry, Chris, but go text and go. No need to apologize. You guys got a Buckeye right in the pocket. CJ Stroud is your guys' quarterback. Wherever Buckeye blood flows, I'll be a fan. I don't mind saying that.
He's grossly underrated too.
Hmm.
He's doing a great job down there.
Yeah. All right. If you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. We're more than happy to answer them. Whatever you've got for us. I kind of figured it'd be a little bit of a lighter show as people get used to the new time.
Hmm.
Before I talk about the next piece of news, Chris, I heard a stat that blew my mind, and I meant to tell you at the top of the show, but now's as good a time as any. And you may have read this, but Warren Buffett just retired. This is the first year in either one of our lives that he has not been the head of Berkshire Hathaway. Uh, if Berkshire Hathaway dropped 99%, it would still beat the markets over his tenure. Uh, that's an insane stat.
Yep. Absolutely incredible. Um, yeah, and I know, like we hint at it, sometimes. Where's I haven't seen Crypto Butthead in here, but there's the fact that younger generations, I like kind of ignore the genius investor mind that Warren Buffett had. Because they get a little bit cocky, right? You get some big returns, and there are big returns in crypto. I'm not saying there aren't. Um, I don't need to understand it to acknowledge that there's a lot of money to be made. But but you even the most arrogant will be like, screw Buffett. Like I'm. They get a little sure of themselves. And it's like, eh, you don't understand the greatness over the length of time. Like what Warren Buffett has done over his career is I mean, it's almost like talking about Wayne Gretzky's hockey stats.
Hmm.
Like if you took away his all of his assists and only counted his goals, he would still lead the league in career points. Like it's stats like that where you just go, that's almost impossible to compute, and get my head wrapped around. Um, so now that I pissed off the crypto bros, um, but yeah, that's it's an incredible stat, and he
Yeah.
was incredible at what he did.
Well, one of the reasons I meant to bring it up at the very beginning of the show is because I think it's a testament to deep work. I mean, he was single mindedly focused on investing, on reading financials of companies. And, like that was he's like, I just read all day long to be able to
What was he?
find,
How
yeah, it
many
was like
hundreds of
500
pages
pages, like
a
500
day?
a day. Yeah, just an insane amount. And then I'm pretty sure like reading biographies and stuff in the evening to wind down. you know? So yeah, but just anyway, that's a stat that I couldn't keep to myself.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's incredible. I'm actually, I'm reading Shoe Dog right
Mhm.
now. Never read it before. I know
Great
I'm
book.
late to the party. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of because I'm only to like I don't know 1969 in the book right now. Um, so but yeah, he's talking about how he is just obsessed with it. He would actually like zone out. He's talking about when he married Penelope, and how they got to know each other, and once they settled into to married life together, she came to realize that he would just have moments where he was just all consumed with the shoe business. He would just zone out, and she learned that sometimes I'm just not listening. And he's basically talking about how he's just consumed by um the company that he started and the business that he's in, and running, in general. He was just kind of uh dove headfirst into the whole thing, and it seems like a common trait. It's like we even talked about it with with our kids in reselling. We hinted at it. It's you gotta you have to be interested in what you do, and well, heck, even sharing these stats and whatnot. I think the people that truly listen to it, and take the numbers and the data to heart, you know, you're probably aligning yourself with a higher chance of success.
Absolutely. All right. Next piece of news. And of course, if you guys have questions, please drop them. That's what we're here for. Um, Amazon just celebrated deploying more than 1 mil, or they just hit their 1 millionth robot working across their fulfillment network. And they came out with a little article that said their robotics technology pairs employees with the right tools to make their workday safer, just corporate speak, more productive while delivering packages to customers faster than ever. But the robots themselves, I found interesting. There's Sequoia, which speeds up inventory storage by 75% and helps them retrieve hundreds of thousands of customer orders every single week. There's Hercules and Titan, and those are actually drive units that transport inventory directly to employees uh, rather than employees walking to inventory. With Titan being capable of lifting twice as much as Hercules can, which I think they got the names backwards there. Vulcan is their first robot with a sense of touch that can actually pick up and stow items at the highest and lowest rows of inventory pods at fulfillment centers. I would imagine that it's got to scare some employees there, wondering how long they're going to have a job. There's Blue Jay, which is a ceiling mounted system that's being tested to power same day delivery sites and can handle multiple fulfillment processes that would traditionally require separate systems. And then finally, they've got Proteus, which is a fully autonomous mobile robot that navigates freely throughout the facilities using sensors. It's just this side of Skynet, from my understanding. But they've also retrofitted over 120 packaging machines across the US to create those crappy made to fit paper bags instead of plastic, uh, trying to help them cut down on the plastic that they use. Okay. I'd much rather just ship it to me in a box, though, please. Um, but
It's not green enough.
Right. But yeah, 1 million robots, man. I wonder how many it would take for them to only have people working to fix the robots when they break rather than people actually picking, packing, and shipping.
We may find out sooner rather than later. Um, this is I like all this stuff because whenever I read about this, I picture Andy Jassy, kind of rubbing his hands together, and his cost saving, and um, scorched earth campaign that he's been seems to be going on for a couple of years. Yeah, I see cost savings. I see efficiency, and I hold out hope that that this is the avenue when Amazon finally does come to the point that they have to be a little bit nicer to the third party sellers, whatever that trigger point is. That some of the they'll use some of this in their shareholder meeting, as far as why they're not raising fees on us, because they've saved X number of dollars with automation and whatnot. So this is all welcome news to me as far as I'm concerned as a third party seller.
Hmm. Yeah, it would be nice. I actually, what I'm curious about. Oh no, I don't even want to know the amount of accounting involved at Amazon. I'm sure they have several floors of accountants and then a couple more floors of tax attorneys to deal with all that stuff. No thanks. I wonder how much Amazon could save just in workers' comp premiums by reducing headcount in warehouses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. Dave, remember to delete your listings from other marketplaces. All my issues are coming from outside the US because of this. Yeah. Yeah, you got to make sure they're deleted across all marketplaces. That's a great tip, man. All right, last piece of news I've got, and of course, if you guys have questions, let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. But some information came out from the Financial Times on back on Sunday. Um, China's government is reporting that they're seeing increased tax revenue from online vendors. We touched on this a little bit before, that China is actually starting to require online sellers to pay taxes, and they're doing this by requiring online marketplaces like Amazon to report sales data to them. So, according to a report from the Financial Times, um, they noted that the country's new tax is placing a huge pressure on merchants, and following the adoption of the rule last year, Amazon, Shein, Alibaba, they've all had to turn over data about merchants' profits and things like that. Uh, Financial Times also said that upwards of 7,000 e-commerce platforms had reported tax-related information by the end of the third quarter. I didn't even know that there were that many e-commerce platforms. That seems like crazy. But this helped drive a 12.7% increase in tax revenues from e-commerce platforms during the third quarter of the year from 2024, at a time when China is seeking new revenue sources in the face of slowing economic growth. Um, and one attorney over there said data-driven taxation has become a weapon in the tax authorities' toolbox, which is what they're really trying to do: make sure they get every dollar that they can get their hands on. Um, and then there is an Amazon exporter or an Amazon seller out of, and I'm gonna absolutely wreck this, Quanzhou, and they wouldn't. They wouldn't say their full name, but said that this will kill us, everyone. We were not paying any tax before, and that's the biggest benefit of selling online. Profit margins on Amazon for sellers average around 8%, and rarely does anyone exceed 20%, he told Financial Times. It's not reasonable at all for cross border merchants like us to pay a tax as high as 13%. So, I personally am a big fan of this. I think that it levels the playing field. I don't mind competition. I welcome competition because I am a capitalist pig through and through. But I am glad to see China doing this because even though it feels at times that Amazon enforces rules differently between U.S. and Chinese sellers, at least this puts us on a more level playing field when it comes to all of the stuff that they can just knock off and sell cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder how Amazon feels about this. You know,
I would imagine they didn't care for it.
right?
They want the Chinese seller to bring them cheap crap.
Yeah, yeah, and lower prices across the catalog, and yeah, it was definitely a benefit. It was kind of not to get too conspiracy, tinfoil hatty with it, but yeah, I'm sure Amazon isn't pleased. Yeah, I mean, this is good news. Not surprisingly, I seem to have a hard time finding any sympathy for the exporter, claiming that it'll kill him. It's loophole closed. I mean, that's kind of like, if you exploit a loophole, and you make money. I don't think anybody working within the terms of a loophole thinks that it's going to go on forever.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't realize that China was experiencing an economic slowdown, though. Not that I have my finger on the pulse of worldwide economies, um, but yeah, between this and the de minimis going away, there's a lot of loopholes being closed, and yeah, this is basically it's excellent news for us, um, because this is now if there was a loophole that they could close for U.S. price tankers, I'd be really really excited.
Right. Yeah,
That's that's not going to
that would be
happen.
fantastic. So every now and again, I get on a listing and I'm like, seriously, can you just knock it off? Like, do you really need to be $2.30 below my price? Like, I get it. You wanna drop it by a penny because you think that's what it takes. Fine. You're still dumb. That's not how it works. But like, why did you choose $2.30?
Right from the jump, like those Keepa charts that just go straight down when with an increase in seller counts. Like
Yeah.
you
It's,
you you just you hate money, you hate profit.
yeah. Yeah. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Well, that's all the news I've got. And I see the question have slowed up. I would imagine that would imagine this new time may have gotten some people off base a little bit. But listen, we're gonna keep at this. It took us a little while for people to show up at 5:30. I would imagine it'll take a little while for people to show up at 7. But we're gonna keep doing this every single week. We'll be back on Sunday, of course, with a another round of Q&A and some news for you guys. And then, yeah, that's it. So, Chris, any closing remarks before we head out?
No, just Sunday will be at 7 o'clock as well.
Hmm.
Just worth mentioning that again. It's across the board. Both shows will be 7 p.m. But the numbers aren't bad especially for the first show of the new time slot. It's bound to have some people wondering where we are at 5:30. So yeah, it'll probably take a while. Well,
Yeah.
think about when we added the Sunday show. It took a while for that to get some traction too. But I think Sunday is actually a bigger show than the Wednesday, right? Numbers wise.
Usually, yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
usually is.
So
I'll tell you what. So we don't get out of here in under 60 minutes. Did did you know that if you tip a canoe over, you can wear it as a hat?
no, I never thought of that.
It's because it's capsized.
Oof, man.
The one
That's
before the show was much much better, but I
yeah.
can't share that one on the air. There might be kids in the room. So
We'll have to do we'll eventually have a 10 p.m. show where the dirty jokes come out, right?
right. All right. That's it for us, everybody. We'll be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. Bring your questions, bring your thoughts, bring your concerns, and bring a good time. So we'll see you on Sunday at 7 p.m. Have a great one, everybody.